Hey guys, how's it going? MegaLugia here, one of your announcers for the MPL, and today, people, we are back with week 5 of the power rankings. I wasn't here last week, but I will be from now on, but luckily you guys had one of my good friends, my co-host, TurboBlaze.
Yo guys, it's Turbo. We are back again today with the power rankings.
Yep. So I hope you guys are excited, and yeah, we'll be going through the power rankings. Let's get started. So, at number 12, we have Bizer from the San Francisco 49ers. Turbo, you want to lead it off?
Well, Bizer, although in his video states he was really unlucky with hacks, he generally had the better matchup in this game and lost, and it was his own fault that he lost. I was really impressed with the Frogadiers this week. They brought a team that was sort of meshed together, didn't really fit, and managed to counter Bizer. I don't really know how Bizer lost the game with the team he had, but okay, hacks is a deal, but you can't let yourself tilt that much. I mean, have you got anything else to add while I sort of go through my notes?
Yeah, definitely. So I really like the Azov set that he brought. It could have been really scary. Subcom mine is not something you see a lot, and if Klefki wasn't able to break that sub, then Azov could have definitely run rampant through Ioku's team. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. Good idea. I like the idea there, but it couldn't play out. Another thing, he played his Ferrothorn really well in the game. It was really hard for Ioku to take down, and if not for my Fire Blast from the Charizard X, which we'll get onto later, then it could have stuck around for the whole game. Especially if Charizard went for the Flare Blitz, taking all that recoil damage, it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. So the Ferrothorn was a big thorn, pun intended, on his side.
Admittedly as well, the Zapdos was played extremely well throughout the game as well. Zapdos and Ferro switching between each other was very good as a defensive core. I think that if he just uses offensive threats a bit better, he would have taken down the Frogadiers team, but he didn't, and that's why he fell down for me. He generally pivoted really well with his defenses. I'm just have the game on in the background at the moment, and I just don't. He had a Victini on his team. You have a Victini and you have an Azov, a Subcon Mind Azov, and you're setting up perfectly well with your Ferro and your Zapdos, just taking that chip away as you need it to, and then you need to set up and go for game, and that just didn't happen, and that's why he lost, in my opinion.
True. Also, on the one of the last plays of the game, when he had his Mega Heracross in versus the Azu, he went for Rock Blast because I get it. If the Charizard X switches in and you go for Bullet Seed, then it's pretty much GG, and it was a roll to knock out the Azu, so kind of a 50-50 there. You can't really blame him for that play, but in hindsight, it's like I said, it's a 50-50, so it's tough to go whether you want for Bullet Seed or Rock Blast. So that's a play that he could have thought over a bit more.
So then we're going to jump straight, I think we go straight into number 11, where unfortunately Dench has dropped a few places with the Beedrills this week. Lugia, you start off with the Beedrills this week.
Alright, so the way I want to summarize this game is Dench realized all his right plays after he made them. So he made the wrong plays, and then a few seconds later he'd be like, oh wait, I should have done that. Like the heal, what am I talking about? When he went for the Calm Mind with the Clefable, he knew there was a Bisharp in the back and he couldn't take the Iron Head. So it really was a kind of useless way to go for the Calm Mind, because he could just switch into the Bisharp, get O-Code, and that was wasted right there. Rotom versus the Gliscor, or switching or going for the T-Wave against the Venusaur with the Thunder Wave. He's like, oh wait, I shouldn't have done that. Like, there were a lot of plays where he realized if he just took the time to think of the consequence of his action, he would have made the right play and wouldn't have got trapped the way he did.
I mean, looking at this realistically, I hate to say it, but Dench really wasn't winning this game from Team Preview. Cypher brought a team of the best wall breakers in the game, and Dench didn't even bring a reliable wall. Like, he has Rotom Wash, okay, that's and Clefable, okay, but Clefable can only be run sort of one way unless you bring setup on it, which he should have really done. And then the other sense, well, he did, but he didn't play it as well. And then he also brought Rotom Wash, which gets worn down really easily if it's not specially or defensively bulky, especially with Mega Venusaur on the side. So I think having Mons in his roster, like Kofag, who could have made an appearance, a really bulky Meloetta could have been a better option, or even Fortress, probably more of a reliable option against the stupidly hyper-offensive team that Cypher had. I mean, there's only two ways of beating hyper-offense, and that's to play defensively really well and just wait out the turns, gradually chip off, or play hyper-offense himself. He didn't do either. He sat in the middle, and that's what happens when you're playing against hyper-offense. If you sit in the middle, you're going to get bodied because you get overwhelmed by the offensive threats. I mean, he was just losing his checks to each Mons. Did Kieran Black hit the field? I'm pretty sure it didn't.
It did not.
So even if if he'd beat a couple of Mons, Kieran Black was coming in and cleaning up. It was extremely well played by Cypher, but Dench, I just think, brought the wrong team. It brought the wrong sets, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you have your Latios, one of your main offensive threats, in versus a Venusaur, and you know that you should be doing the calcs to see how much your Draco Meteor can do. If Draco does about half to a Mega Venusaur, that's telling you something. That's telling you how fat this Mega Venusaur is. So he should have gone straight for the Side Shock. Although he already had his Cobra Berry knocked off on a switch in from the knockoff, that's not something that's his fault. That's mainly good prep by Cypher, but I think he just lacked a bit in the offense.
So next up, we are again having another team that's dropped a little bit this week with the St. Louis Sableyes, who matched up against Token and the other Staraptors team. So
Toronto Staraptors.
We'll start off this game. The St. Louis brought a completely different team that Token predicted. Token predicted him to bring MegaLugia, Registeel, Weavile, Scully, Emboar, and Greninja, which is, in my opinion, a team that I think the St. Louis should have brought. If you're looking at Token's team, I think he brought a really, really frail team against a team that Token knows is very bulky and very offensive. Token's got a bulky offensive team right there, and St. Louis brought a really, really frail side other than the Registeel, which is the most passive wall in the game, in my opinion. So again, at team matchup, it wasn't really great. St. Louis generally just got outplayed the entire game. Every play they were making the right plays. That you can't take that away from them. There was double switches that were made that were predicted by Token, but they were the right double switches. It's just the sense that he didn't make a game-changing play, and that's why he's down here at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, he made some good plays, like you said. Like, I really, really like the natural gift on the Registeel. That was a great bring. You know, expecting like the Scizor to stay in and go for a superpower, and then getting and Okoing it back with a natural gift fire. That was really good to see. But like you said, there were some questionable plays, like when he switched out into Latias when he had the Scolipede in versus the Sylveon. That's kind of risky. Maybe he was predicting the Sableye to come in, but again, all it would have done is just burnt you. He did make some good plays, like he went for the sub on the Scolipede because there weren't really any drawback plays. He was behind the sub and he was faster than whatever came in. But like you said, he was just out prepped by Token, and the rain was a real hindrance to his team, especially if he went for the HP fire with the rain up. You know, it wouldn't have done as much damage. So good prep, but just in the end out prepped by Token.
Going back to what you said about the HP fire, the natural gift fire play, it was completely wrongly timed. I think he just got a bit excited over the fact that he'd prepped up for this Scizor and he's going to take it out. If you just looked at the turn before, Scizor had gone for Bullet Punch on the Registeel and had done nothing. Token had no reason to stay in, like literally no reason. Even if he had a superpower on the Scizor, the Registeel would have eaten it, and then the Scizor would have been -1/-1 and had to go out anyway. So there was no point in Token staying in, so he made the right play and you turning out, and it was really obvious. So I think if he'd held off on that natural gift, potentially gone for an Iron Head, or I think he set his rocks up if he hadn't already, maybe a better play, or even double. At this point, if he doubles into a threat like Emboar or Greninja, or even Scolipede on the incoming Swampert that he doesn't know yet, he then preserves his Registeel. He has loads of health on his Registeel, at least 3/4 health, and he has his natural gift berry still inact for the Scizor, but he didn't waste it, and that's why then the Registeel just gets bodied by the Scizor at the end of the game. So it's all about patience, and he had the right play, but that was a big misplay in this game, activating that berry too early.
Yeah, very true. I guess that's what happens when you're reading heat sets. You want to get him out. You want to get to that top 5 plays of the week. But yeah, moving on from there, at number 9, we have the Blackthorn Frogadiers, who played versus Baiser. You want to lead it off?
I was really impressed with Frogadiers this week. After slating them last week, I was really impressed. As I said before, they didn't have the matchup. They brought a reasonably bulky team. They brought Klefki, who's bulky. They brought Azu as a bulky attacker. Again, Weezing and Claydol's special and physically defensive walls alike. And then Megazard X and Miss Magius. So a reasonably bulky side against a team that was very attacking from Pricer. And I just think the way he played was really good. He did struggle against the Ferrothorn and the Zapdos, but he did the right thing in terms of just getting chip off and just doing enough so later on he could take them out with his big cleaner his cleanest being Zardex and Azu. like you said, he made a few ballsy plays, like staying in with the Azu against the Mega Heracross, just knowing he had enough stuff in the back to take out the game. In the middle of the Fire Blast play on the Rhyhorn was excellent prep on his part for that as well. And obviously Weezing was a great bring, because Weezing did so much against the 49ers team. I was really impressed with that as well.
Yeah, he made that. Like you said, he made some really good plays. I liked his really good vision of the end game. He knew he had Scarf Mismagius in the back. He had the Charizard X with the Fire Blast, and he made some really good plays. Like, one play that he made was he realized that when he had his Claydol in versus the Zapdos, he knew it was a good check to it. Zapdos couldn't do much to it, but he didn't want to stay in and waste his PP for Sludge Bomb, because Zapdos is pressure, obviously. So that's some really good insight that I like to see there. Like you said, Fire Blast on Charizard X was a great bring. You never really see Charizard use his special moves, although it does have 130 special attack, so maybe we're going to see it more often in the season. And like I said, Scarf Mismagius was really good, and it was crucial to get those spikes and those rocks up for those chip damage to make sure he gets those knockouts later on. So very well played by Ioku.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not much else to say other than that. If he keeps playing like this, again, he's going to be climbing up. Obviously, he climbed 2 spaces this week. You never know. If he keeps consistently, he'll be climbing. But coming in at number 8 is the team that I accidentally missed out last week. Sorry about that. But the Leeds Rhyhorns. The Leeds Rhyhorns played... they played the Baltimore Braveries and unfortunately suffered a loss. Now, if you want to start this off, Luke.
Sure. So a lot of this I'm gonna base off of Blake's prep. He knew with his investment on the Braviary that a Sludge Bomb would not break the sub against an Amoonguss, and he had the Lumberry to avoid the Spore and a potential poison if he wants to get behind that sub and keep the longevity. It was a great bring. The Braviary was a real threat to Jordy's team, especially behind the sub, and especially when the Seismitoad couldn't even break it with a Scald and get that burn off. So it was kind of out-prepped by Blake on that part. He did make some good plays, and I really like the Calm Mind Entei. It was really well. It worked really well. The Extra Sensory as well for the Infernape to take it out. And if Nidoqueen was special instead of physical, it could have lived a hit with that Calm Mind up and outspeed it and take out more of the rest of his team. But unfortunately, it was physical this week, so not much to say about there. Anything you want to say?
I agree with you in the sense that they were out-prepped. I think that Bolt is just showing what they can do with all their prep, but Jordy brought a really passive team. I think Amoonguss, bringing a team with Amoonguss against that generally didn't have a great matchup. Okay, it deals with Whimsicott pretty well, but I mean, if you're bringing Amoonguss against a team with Nidoqueen, like in its roster, not even just as a 6v6, Nidoqueen, Infernape, Uxie, Bravery, it's not going to do much. Alright, Amoonguss is one of the best balls in the game. It's got Regenerator, it's nice, but like, I mean, there's better mons he could have brought. Looking down his roster, I mean, Latias is in there. No Latias appearance, I don't think. I don't see why he didn't bring Latias this week. Okay, he didn't bring Latias. I don't see why not. Latias matches up really well. Umbreon could have done a better wall job than Amoonguss, in my opinion. Okay, Infernape still hurts it pretty well, but or even Hitmontop. I just don't think Amoonguss was right this week. You're right about the Calm Mind Entei. I liked that. That was nice. Entei's quite diverse. He can do a lot, but he generally, Blake just outplayed him. You couldn't really do much about it. He brought a lot of passive attackers, so Amoonguss and Seismitoad don't hit hard enough if you invest enough bulk in them, which is why Blake was able to exploit that. I like Ditto. Ditto was good. His stop setup, he could have had setup or even scarfed Infernape. It would have been nice just to even catch a speed time and scarfed Infernape, or beat a Nidoqueen 1v1. It's always nice, but I didn't agree with the Amoonguss and the Seismitoad just because too much bulk meant that they got exploited and he lost the game because of it.
Yeah, that's the problem when you bring Amoonguss or Seismitoad or any Pokemon of that nature. They can be too passive at times, and although they're really great at walling your opponent's team, if they choose to set up, then you're kind of left in no man's land. There's nothing to do. Like the Rindoberry, for example, on the Seismitoad, it's a great play. It's kind of predictable at times, you know, with Mons that have 4 times weaknesses. But having said that, if you pack the Rindoberry, then you're expecting it to come into play at one point. So when he was in versus the Raikou, if he expects that Rindoberry to come into play, he should have gone for the Scald instead of the move that he went for. That would have been a much better move to KO the Raikou. And yeah, not much else to say about that. One thing I do want to add though, the nickname for the Seismitoad, Susan Boyle, fucking hilarious. I loved it.
Okay, so up next we have the Chicago Chandelures. They matched up against an extremely good side in the Houston MegaHorns. And looking at team preview, the matchup was really, really even. I liked it. The MegaHorns brought a reasonably bulky, balanced team. The same did the Chandelures. Talonflame making an appearance, Sableye making an appearance, Empoleon, Garchomp, Electros, Cobalt. So I liked both teams in the matchup, and it looked really, really good. I think that the Chandelures were making the right plays throughout the game. They made the right switches at the right times. It was like turn one, they did the safe. They just continuously tried to play safely. And okay, that works sometimes if your opponent, if you're always carrying the momentum and you just continuously play safely, it works. But you actually have to do something to gain the momentum first before you can just continuously play safe. And he didn't do that. The Houston coach, Aura, says in his video, he says that I hold the momentum. He continuously references the fact that he's holding the momentum at different points in the game. And even though he knows this, or he's aware of this, and Asteroid mustn't be aware of this, he still keeps making the safe plays, and that's where he falls down on his part. Potentially, the obvious... Okay, the first turns are obvious. He switches in a Sableye, he switches in a Heatran on a Will-O-Wisp, gets the Flash Fire boost. Then he's in with an Empoleon. Should have potentially... If he potentially Scalds here, gets a lot of damage off on the Heatran, or I think the Heatran switches here, I think, fearing the Scald. So, yeah, even though he should have just gone for the ballsy Scald, expecting the switch, okay, the Lantern comes in, and he gets rocks up. There's ballsy plays that were available for him to make that he didn't quite make, and he generally just got pivoted around until Aura found a break in his defense and then managed to just clean up, because Aura was fully aware of the end game and how he had to win and what he had to win. That's basically how it is. I think he didn't use his Sableye as well as he could have against the team with the Mega Medicham. Same with the Talonflame. I think a natural good Talonflame could have been a better bring. I'm not sure. Cobalt again was very well used, but in the same sense it was completely outplayed by Aura, in the sense that his Tyranitar was just used as a way of getting rid of the Empoleon. So Tyranitar was killed off. So not Empoleon, Tyranitar was killed off to kill the Cobalion in the return switch. So it was generally a great game in my opinion, but he didn't do anything that was game changing enough to give him the momentum so he could play safely. Aura had the momentum the entire game, so that's what the game was.
I think you pretty much covered everything I wanted to say and more, so let's move on to the next number. Next up, we have the Anastar Umbreons coached by Mystic. Now, I'm going to say, first off from the get-go, Vaporeon, when he brings it every week, it puts so much pressure on just from the get-go. He leads off with it, and from there, it's already making it stand. Burn, burn, burn everywhere. And he had no drawback play for going for burn, going for Scald, because he knew the mons that Pat had in couldn't OHKO it, couldn't do that much damage. And if he got that Scald burn, it would be that much better. And the residual damage and the increased defenses was just, it was no drawback play, like I said.
I mean, the Umbreons have dropped a place this week, and that's nothing to do with them. I think it's just another coach has got has gone up a lot for a really, really good performance, but we'll come to that later. The Umbreons played a generally good game. Okay, the luck was on his side, but this game's RNG, that's what happened. I love the way Umbreon uses, ironically, Vaporeon, but I love the way he uses it. I hate Vaporeon versus Vaporeon in leagues. It generally mucks me up every time. Pat had to bring his A game just to get around it. It was extremely tense game. And Vaporeon was just ever present. If you flick through the video on YouTube, all you'll see in the little highlights is just Vaporeon, because it is an extreme threat. He has the pivots with the Mega Lopunny, he has the pivots with the Staraptor and the Landorus to get into the Lopunny, and then he has his walls with the Shaman and the Vaporeon. It's a great crafted team. It's just Pat just brought his A game, and that's all it is. The rolls came to Pat in the end of the game as the rolls were coming to the Umbreons in the start of the game. It just matched off really well, and it was a really tense game. The Umbreons are doing really well. I think if they keep playing like this, they will be a strong threat for playoffs, so just make sure you keep doing that.
Yeah, I like some of the sets that he brought, but there were some risky plays. For example, when he switched out into the Lando Eye versus Hippowdon, that was a risky play. Hippowdon could have gone for the Ice Fang, which would have done some serious damage. He went for the Power Up Punch with the Lopunny on the hip out on switch. Going for 2 ice punches would have done the same thing, but he got lucky with a crit, so you know that's the game we play, like you said. He had quick attack on the low punny as well in case of a scarf Mienshao, so that's some good hindsight there as well. So overall, I like the sets he brings. He played a bit passively. He couldn't really get past the end game that Pat had planned for him, but other than that, he played a pretty good game.
Next up at number 4, again dropping a place, is the Detroit Umbreons. Detroit Live Pods. Wrong dark type. The Detroit Live Pods just brought the most stupid offensive team I've ever seen in league play ever. I think they were all, if you look at them, other than Vapor, all of them have the potential to be physical attackers. I think 5 of them out of the 6 were physical attackers. We don't know because Kieran didn't hit the field, and I don't think he did a team prep. Did he do a team prep?
Who, Dench or Cypher?
Cypher.
I don't think he did.
So the Kieran Black could have been special, but from what we can see, 5 or potentially 4 of the mons are physical, of Venusaur being mixed. The Venusaur knockoff bring was excellent. I liked it. It was definitely there purely to counter the Latios, which is lovely. He has mons that just beat. He just had mons that beat the Beedrills. Like he picked a mon specifically to beat another mon. The Bishop's there purely to stop that Clefable. The Volcanion's there because it stops Clefable. The Gliscor's there because it stops a lot of other threats on his team. It can carry knockoff and U-turn. It stops the Meloetta. It stops. What else could it have stopped? Going for his team. He could have. I think he probably could have brought Stone Edge on there to stop that Gyarados. He just brought mons that stopped his opponent's team. Venusaur was a massive threat throughout. He was really ballsy with his Venusaur, leaving it in on a Latias, and just thinking he just played around it safely. And okay, he dropped a place and didn't play as well as the coaches above him, which is why he's on number 4 in his team. Oh, not number 4, number 5.
Number 5.
That's why he's number 5, because he didn't play like an amazing game. He just brought an amazing team. So let's just say.
Yeah, like you said, it's unfortunate that he had to drop a few spaces, but it's just because of the coaches had above. But having said that, his team was just disgusting. From the get-go, Mega Venusaur stayed in, and it just never left. He made some really ballsy plays, like you said, staying in versus the Latios, but on the other hand, he predicted the switches and went for a knockoff, getting rid of that Clover Berry, which could have definitely come into play versus the Bisharp. So he now knew that Bisharp could Pursuit Trap the Latios, which was a big deal later on in the game. Staying in versus the Meloetta, taking the Thunder Wave, dealing a lot of damage back with the knockoff. Like, it was a lot of good plays, but at the same time, Dench made a few misplays, which worked in Cypher's favor. So I really like the team he brought. Like you said, Kieran Black didn't even have to hit the field, which says how good you played. So that's Cypher's team.
Next up, we have a coach who really deserves to be up where they are at the moment, and that was number 4. Okay, last week I have to put a little disclaimer out here. I only based the rankings on what I'd seen from that week, because obviously it would have taken me ages to watch like 3 weeks worth of 12 coaches 45-minute videos. So I based it on the week that I had, which is why the power rankings is sort of going to stable out a bit more from this point on. So Toronto, a couple of weeks were at 10 2 weeks ago. Now they're up at 4, which is where they deserve to be after that game. That Toronto played, it was just expert. It was expertly played throughout. They predicted everything. He did the right thing. Again, we're talking about the Sizzle play, you turning out, knowing there was a potential for Natural Gift Fire. He knew how to set up and sweep with. He had more than one mon that could set up and sweep with the Rain, which is lovely at the end. The Armaldo just got the kills at the end. I would have loved it if he'd Swords Dance for a dominance, but he's not that kind of guy. I just loved it. It was a really good game. It was a really enjoyable game. I was having a conversation with him just before he uploaded it, and then I told him straight away. I watched 4 turns into the game, and I was just like, dude, I'm impressed. This game is going to be good. I can't wait. And so
definitely, yeah, like this game, like you said, it was like just a well executed plan that went right from the start. So he noticed that Rain and Scizor work really well against Dan's team. Like, Scissor's only weak to fire, right? If you have the Rain up, that fire, that HP fire or natural gift fire, whatever it may be, is not going to do as much damage. And physical water with Rain was really well, worked really well as well, since he had the Goodra, who resists water type moves, but Goodra's not known for his physical defense, more special defense, so he knew they could take advantage of that. He had a really good view of the end game, knowing what he had to do, what he needed to set up with to get that potential KOs in the end. Like a really good play that I wanted to see was sacking off the Sylveon to prevent the defog from the Latias. So he switched into Sylveon, the defog wouldn't work, and Sylveon died to rocks. That's a play I personally would have thought of, and I really like what he did there. Armaldo, like you said, when do you ever see Armaldo get a sweep, especially in league play? So really good predictions and end game view from Token.
And that's not much. That's literally all to say. He was that uniformed. It was that good. There's not much else to say. So we're gonna jump into number 3, and we have a team that wants to be number 1, but just can't get there yet. He needs to get rack a few more wins up. But with this kind of prep, he's coming. He's coming for you, Sin in Houston. He's coming for you. He, as you said, he EV'd everything really, really specifically. You can tell this man puts in time when he preps his mons. I love the fact the substitute couldn't be broken on the Bravery with the Sludge Bomb. That was awesome prep. He brought an excellent team to counter the Leeds Rhyhorns perfectly. He had the right amount of U-turn and Volt Switch potential. He had the Whimsicott, which stops any form of status or setup from anything because of Encore's an option. Uxie's there is a great defensive pivot. I really like it. And he didn't need to make massive plays in the game. He just did what he planned to do. And that's what good prep comes in.
Exactly, it worked really, really well. Like I can't say it enough. Just specific EV spreads, knowing how they're gonna turn out in the match, how they're gonna play out. It just works really well when that situation, works out for you. Like the sub on the Bravery, he knew if Braviary is behind a sub, Brave Bird would do a lot of damage, even on a resisted hit to Thundurus, especially with rock subs, which he had in the end, and that's what came into play. I really like the prep and the Lumberry over the safety goggles because he didn't want to get that poison on the Sludge Bomb, which would have really, really hindered his longevity behind the sub. He played really aggressively as well, making doubles, predicting the Amoonguss to come out, so he goes into Braviary, and then Amoonguss is going to switch out, so that's essentially a free sub. So really good plays, and like you said, he will make it to that number 1 spot very soon if he continues to play like this. If there were just some other coaches above him this week.
So next up, it's probably a first ever for the power rankings in this sense. We have a joint 1. We can't pick a 2. It's just these two can't be split. We're going to talk about Houston first, just because Sin has the better record, but they're both at number 1 in our perspective. I'll talk about Houston and Lugia will talk about Sin. So Houston, as we said before, oh my god, what a game. Literally, he did everything right. He was reading the game like it was a book, like a children's book. He was just picking the right mons at the right times. He knew how to get over certain things. The plays around, using the, I loved his use of T-Tar. I'm not quite sure what set it was, but his T-Tar was excellently EV'd. The Togekiss was there. He knew the Togekiss coming in and setting up a nasty block would clean up the game. He also had another win check in Landorus and another win check in well, his main win check was Togekiss and his second win check was Landorus, and then he was pivoting around with a Lantern, knowing that Lantern could wall him out. I mean, when you have Mega Medicham on a team and it's not your main win check, that shows how well you've prepped this game out. He played excellently around the Sableye and used Heatran, Togekiss and Lantern as a core really, really well. Togekiss came out and just did what Togekiss does best, nasty plot up and air slash things to bits. And he just played really, really well around it. You can't fault him for anything he did. And it shows last week when he played against Sin, if he'd prepped up and had some time, that game could have been the best game, one of the best games potentially in league history. I'm just putting it out there. But yeah, there's not much more to say about Houston. These two are just a dead weight at the moment. We couldn't drop Sin because obviously Sin beat him last week, but we couldn't drop Houston because this game was too good. So
So I'm gonna talk about Sin City Staraptors, but I just want to say, Aura from the Houston Megahorns, you played really, really well. Like I said, I can definitely see you and Pat staying up here in the power rankings, so it'll be interesting to see what comes in the coming weeks. So Pat, right, this game was the definition of patience. When you get Scald burned by Vaporeon turn 1 and you just keep getting burnt, it's really easy to go on tilt and just lose your way and potentially lose the match in the end. But Pat, he stayed calm. He knew what he had to do. There were a series of plays where it was the floor just in versus the Vaporeon, and he knew if he just kept going for Wish, not wish. If you kept going for aromatherapy, moonblast, it would eventually, the Vaporeon would eventually have to switch out or go for the wish when it's at really low HP, and that gives Pat the opportunity to switch into one of his more offensive threats like the Tornadus. So he had a really good vision of the end game. He didn't let the plays in the beginning of the match disrupt his plays later on. He was able to Oko the Landorus Eye, which was a huge threat to his team. And there was one misplay that I want to talk about. When the Gardevoir was in versus the Mienshao, whenever you bring a Gardevoir in, if it's non-mega, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's going to be scarfed. So saying in versus your Mienshao, potentially expecting it not to be scarfed, was a misplay. He could have easily switched into the Blastoise or the Florges. There was no harm there, no drawback, so that was a bit of a misplay. But other than that, he really played well. He pivoted around well. Once the Vaporeon was gone, he knew his offensive threats could put in the work, so really good play there, and that's why he's joint at number 1. Anything you want to add?
No, you pretty much summed it all up. Credit to Pat for dealing with those school burns and not going on tilt. It's a sign of a champion. I mean, those two are going to be fighting it out till the end. Like, there's no splitting them. It'll be great. I mean, Bolt could be coming up as a dark horse as well. Token, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great end game to the season. We're only in week 5, so let's see what happens, to be honest.
Definitely. And that wraps up our week 5 power rankings, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching. Make sure to let us know what you thought of it. Any other places or any other picks you would have switched around, we'll definitely look at them. Anything you want to add, my man?
Make sure you check all the coaches out. The links will be in the descriptions, as well as mine and MegaLugia's channel, whose also links will be in the descriptions. Make sure you drop a like on the video, and we'd love to see your own power rankings. We probably comment on if I'm commenting, I'll comment on my personal account. I don't know what Lugia will do, but obviously we read all the comments. I was checking last week's video all week just to see if there's any new comments I can respond to.
Definitely. So make sure to let us know what you think. And until next time, guys, MegaLugia and Turbo checking out.
Bye.
Peace.